Thanks for coming. My name is Josh Osborne. I'm the product manager for the CI tools here at Central Innovation. And today we're going to look over some of the CI tools. As you might know, there's about 11 CI tools in total. We're not going to have time to go through all of those today. So I'm just going to go over the top 5 of them, the sort of the most popular ones, just to show you how they work, what kind of things you can do with them quickly, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you already use the tools to some extent, this will be a good opportunity maybe to ask some things that you wanted to know about them. And if you don't know the tools, then this should give you a good idea of what you can do with them and that sort of thing. And if you want to set up a trial, you can go ahead and do that. To start with, we're going to be looking at doors and windows, then we'll look at the electrical tool, then keynotes, coverings, and we'll finish up with the cabinets tool. And I'm going to be working in ArchiCAD 23 today. Hopefully most of you are on that version. Depending on which tool we look at, most of them will be the same in 22 if you're still on that version. So you shouldn't have any trouble with anything you see, but a couple of the tools, cabinets in particular, will look quite different in 22. So if you're seeing stuff that you don't see on your end, that's probably why. And I'll be recording this webinar as well, and it'll be uploaded to the MyCI website sometime next week. So you can watch this again later if you want to, or if you want to show it to anyone else in your office or something like that. And if you have questions as you go, just enter those in the question or the chat panels in the GoToWebinar thing. And once I get to the end of the presentation section, I'll go through and answer as many of those as I can do. All right, so starting with the doors and windows tool. This is our most popular tool, and one of the things that the doors and windows tool is good for is obviously making doors and windows, but making lots and lots of different kinds of doors and windows. If you've used the ArchiCAD default library doors and windows, you might have run across the problem where you can't find exactly the type of window that you want to, or that it's just difficult to get to the one that you want to because every different type of window or door is a separate object. The way that our window and door tool works is that there's a single object for each type: doors, windows, and exterior doors. And so you just choose that object and you can customize it to whatever sort of shape and size you need for the project that you're working in. So let's start off by looking at this window here. So you can see on the left here in my list of available window types, I've just got the one CI Tools window. So this is just to make it easy so that you don't have to choose going through some selection of different types of windows. You just grab the one, and then you could use a favorite on that or the presets, which we'll have a look at shortly, to make whatever kind of window you want. So you can see in the settings here, you've got various options for how it can work. You can use a preset set of sizes. They come with a few default sort of size setouts, but you can make your own as you go here, and you can assign different codes to those as well so that they can match up with the manufacturer codes of whatever you're using. You can also set up the overall dimensions and shape of your window. So instead of using a flat-headed window, you can change it to a Gothic arch or something like that. And this again is just a thing that would normally you require a different library to do this, or a different object in the same library, whereas it's all just built into the one here, so that makes it nice and easy. And then you can set out your glazing panels. So you can see this one here at the moment is set up with one main one and some openings on the side here, and those are set to form a grid of 3. So as you could see in the preview before, we've got our grid of 3 and our main one on the left, and you can see it's now taking the Gothic arch shape that I set it to. And you can click on this interface here and configure the windows to whatever way you want them to. to work. So you can see I've selected this one here and I've got it set to fixed pane, but there's lots and lots of options of the different kinds of panes you want to include in there, including doors if you need those, and louvers. And you can also insert static panels along with all of the other window types that are there. We've also got lots and lots of settings further down here for the way you want your frame to look, if you want to see a sill, and if you want to change the way the inner frame is set out, you can choose the way that the glass looks, and there's lots of settings for the exterior trims as well, so you can put on some head moulding, moulding on the jambs, and a all-around exterior trim, and also a sill if you need to. And there's also interior trims if you need those, and you can set up shim spaces around the outsides of your windows as well. We've also got a section just to let you set the surfaces of the window, and then various display options about how you want the window to actually look in your floor plans and 3D and section and elevations. You can set those all in these settings here, and they'll also correspond to quite a few settings in your model view options, so you can control them by view if you want to. You can see up here it's using the model view options to set the detail level for different scales, so you can use that to make it show differently depending on where you're at. We also got some schedule options as well, how it's going to schedule, and I'll show you the schedule in a second, but there's some additional settings for that there. But as you can see, there's lots of areas that you can customize in this to make it fit whatever you need to. You can save all of these as a favorite, so you can make a whole library of favorites with just the one window object, but that correspond to pretty much all of your windows. And you can also use these snap sizes and the presets here to set up your own library using that system as well, which I don't really have time to look into in much in depth today, unfortunately. So that's the window. The door is very similar. Did I actually have a door placed in this model? Yes. So you'll see it looks quite similar to the window. On the left, you can see, in this case, we have a couple of different options for the different doors, just because doing all of it inside of one object doesn't necessarily make sense in a lot of cases. So CI Tools door is the main door object to use, but there's also a door exterior object, which is useful for doing ranch sliders and that sort of thing. And garage door is for garage doors, obviously. The door exterior tool is much more like the window tool, in that it lets you do a lot more to do with glazing and that sort of thing. So if you are wanting to do ranch sliders or something, you can use that object for it. But for most doors, you'll use the CI door tool. And it's set out in a similar way. So it's got the configuration settings at the top and those same snap sizings that we had in the window tool, and codes for your catalog codes. Then you can set the dimensions overall and the shape of the door as well. Settings for how you want glazing panels in the door to look and how you want the door to actually, what kind of door you want it to be. So we've got various options here. You should be able to cover off most of the different doors you might want to use. And then the door leaf settings let you set how the actual door leaf itself will look. So obviously this is just a solid one, but you can do a inset panel or glass, and there's lots of different layouts for those. If for somehow none of these covers off what you need to, we can also use a custom panel in here as well. If you have some unusual thing that you've made up yourself using slabs, you can save that out as a custom panel type and use that here. The rest of the settings are fairly similar to the window, so you've got some hardware settings to do with how the handles and kick plates on the door should look, and various settings to do with those. And then the trim settings and shims, etc., are all very similar to what we saw in the window tool. So you've got the doors and windows very configurable to whatever you need them to be, and then you can also generate a schedule. So I will show you one I prepared earlier. We use worksheets for our schedules, and you manage them by going to the Doors and Windows menu and Schedule Manager. and you'll see here the various settings that you can apply to your schedule. So this is showing you the one that I have open in the background here. At the moment it's set to show doors and windows, but you can use all sorts of filters to change what shows in it and how they are collated. If you want to collate similar or the same doors and windows together, there's controls for that. There's controls for how the layout will be applied, so where it will try and fit all of these into, what size page. The dimensions that are shown on each element and the labels that are shown on them as well. And these can all be updated from your model just by going into here and choosing the update schedule option. So you can make changes to your doors and windows and floor plan, update the schedule, and it'll be ready to go right away. You can also attach notes to the schedule elements as well using a schedule notes system that we have here. I don't have any at the moment, but you can go through and assign notes and categorize them as well, and those will show in the schedule if you want them to, depending on what doors you've got them attached to, so you can add extra info as well, and they'll appear in the list below this. All right, that's been slightly too long for doors and windows already, unfortunately, so let's move on to electrical. The electrical tool is intended as a nice and quick way to place and manipulate your electrical plates largely, and to work with your circuits. So one of the main things about the electrical tool is that you can go in, select whatever thing you want to use. Let's go with this push button switch. And then to place it, simply hold down the space bar and click on the wall, and it places your symbol. Do the same again on a different wall. It automatically, because it is snapping to the wall, it automatically rotates itself so that it is in the right orientation, and then sticks it to that wall that we clicked on. So it makes it much easier to get those placed. And now that we have those placed, it gives us a nice 3D representation. It's a little bit hard to see with the lighting here, but a nice 3D representation of that switch that we just placed. And so that corresponds in location to where the symbol was placed, and you can set where you want the elevation of the switch to be in the settings for it. There's quite a few settings you can use in here. At the moment, obviously, this is a push button switch, and it's set to just show one, but you can come in here and set them to show whatever you need them to. So choose how many switches you want, and then set the number of rows so that it lays them out differently. You can rotate the plate to be horizontal instead of straight up the wall like that, and you can control the way the symbol is displayed as well. So there's various settings about how you want that to show, and you can also set whether you want it to show as an individual symbol or symbols for all of the modules that are in it. I'm using the model view options to do that at the moment, so you can again have different views that show your symbols in different ways if you want to. There's also a label that you can apply to that, and then some product data that you can have embedded in the object, which you can use for your schedule later or just for finding them more easily. Once you have some symbols placed, you can create circuits by wiring them to things that you want them wired to. So say you have some light fixtures or something. I'm just going to go through and choose a blender. So you select the element that you want to include in the circuit and the electrical elements that you want to include in the circuit, and then go to the CI Tools menu, Electrical, Add Wiring. And it gives you some options about how you can apply the wiring. So I'm going to use automatic path for this one, and I'm going to set the bend to automatically do that. This number here is just how sort of wobbly you want to make the path, and you can control how you want the path to be drawn, whether you want it to just be arcs or do you want to put curves that you can actually manipulate on it. I'm just going to stick with arcs for now. And the settings for how you want the line to appear, I'll stick with that default for now, but you can set that to show whichever way works for sort of your system of attributes in your model. Click OK, and it draws up a wire for us. And now if I select my blender and move it somewhere else, the wire follows it. So elements that are connected to a circuit continue to know that they're in the circuit, so you can move things around after you've set up your wiring, and you don't have to worry about going back and making sure that the wires follow everything and they still do the right thing. And you can wire up multiple elements as well. So at the moment, obviously, there's not a particularly interesting circuit, but if I add in some more things, it will make a bit more sense. So I'll wire up both of those. And you can see now it does a bit more unusual things that will make it more useful to have those remembered wiring pieces as you're moving things around. As your wiring gets more complicated, it will become more useful to you that way. And there's various other settings to do with how the poles of the switches work and that sort of thing, but we need to move on to the next tool now. So that's the electrical, and the next one we're going to look at is keynotes. Keynotes is probably, as the name tells you, it's for doing keynotes. So the way that it works is that you have a database of notes in your project, and it will let you apply those notes to elements or just put notes down anywhere in the project and easily schedule those and sort of keep them in order, make sure that they are all up to date with one another, and that sort of thing. So to start out with, you can import notes from, if you have an existing note system, you can import a CSV file from there. We include a handful of notes with the tool as a sort of example of how it works, but you're probably using something already for keynotes, so you should import a CSV file from whatever you are using. I'm just going to stick with our example file for now. So I'll import a set of notes, and then I can just go through and apply notes to my project as I go. So you can see I'm double clicking on them in the palette here and then placing them here. And now if I go to the floor plan view that contains these notes, I can go up to my CI Tools menu and go to Keynotes, Create Schedule. There's a couple of different ways you can make the schedule here. I'm going to go with the current layout because I don't want to label I don't want to put schedules on all of my layouts just yet. I'm going to include only the keynotes that are visible in this layout. There's various options there though for however you might want to generate your schedule. And I'm using the schedule settings that I have set up here already, so I'm not going to change that just yet. We've also got options if you were generating a list of all of the notes, you can choose to fit schedule to layout, which will fit in as many notes as it can in this layout and then create further layouts to fit in any extras that it can't fit on this page. And this option here will, if I choose the all unscheduled layouts, it'll only schedule layouts that actually have notes on them, and it won't try and do anything with layouts that don't have anything there. So that will save you a bit of time if you're wanting to generate a lot of schedules at once. So I'm going to hit OK, and you can see it creates the schedule here using those 3 notes that I placed. And because those are linked directly to the notes database, I can go in and make changes to any of the notes or delete these notes, and they will come through to the schedule right away. So the 40209 one, let's just add something in there. You can see my labels haven't updated straight away, and that's because we make the process of updating them manual so that you don't accidentally go through and modify all of your labels at once if you accidentally click on one of the notes to change it. So what we use is this thing called the auditor. And when you bring that up, it's going to go through and check for consistency of all your notes. And you can see that there is a note on floor plan ground floor 1, which is where we are right now, that has changed. And so I'm just going to click the repair option. And oh, now that I think of it, that was a bad choice because I'm not actually showing the description on this note. But you can see that the extra bit that I added is there now. And if I jump back into my schedule here and update it, you'll see it come through to there as well. Yep. So you can see it's appeared there now. And there's lots of other ways that you can apply keynotes. We have element keynotes that will let you associate keynotes with certain attributes of the elements. So you can say that all elements that have brick in them should have a certain note attached and that sort of thing. And there's various other options with the way that the labels show and the way that the schedule shows and things like that, which I don't have time for today. But if you have any questions about that, you can always ask us on support or after this presentation. The next thing I want to look at is the coverings tool. So the coverings tool kind of does what it says. It covers things. In this case, walls, roofs, slabs, and columns. Probably the most common use for it is with walls. So I'm just going to show you on this wall here. I select the wall and I go to the coverings menu and choose wall coverings. And there's a couple of settings in here which will let you control the way that this works, but basically this is putting the cladding onto my walls. So at the moment, this covering is set to split at sill height, so this means that it's going to apply 2 different covering types to this wall, and it's going to split the 2 of them at the sill height that I have set, which you can see is this B element here. So there's 2 different coverings on that, but there's plenty of different ways that you can do it. So you could get your coverings to be the same all over except underneath the openings and that sort of thing. There's plenty of ways that you can configure it, or you can just have single cladding which will apply the same thing over the whole wall. I'll stick with this one for now just so you can see the 2. And then I go into the covering settings and you can see we've got the different settings for the main coverings and the below sill coverings. So the main coverings are currently weatherboards, and the advantage of using the coverings for these is that it's actually going to apply 3D weatherboards to this project, or to this wall, sorry, once I add this. And so you can cut a section through them, you'll be able to see that they're 3D, you'll see them in your renders and that sort of thing. And there's plenty of control over the way that it applies those weatherboards. And there's also quite a few different options for what you want your cladding to be. So obviously weatherboards I have selected at the moment, but we've got shingles, shiplap, panels, bricks and blocks, boards and battens, which you can configure in a lot of different ways, and corrugate and logs and a couple of other ones like that. So I've got weatherboards for the top part, and then for the below sill part I've got board and battens set, and you can see there's some different settings here for the way that you want the boards and the battens to be dimensioned and that sort of thing. So those will apply under that sill height all across my wall. You can also control how you want the trims to be applied, if any, to the wall and to the openings that are in the wall here. So if you're not putting on trims using your window or door tools that you have in there, you can apply them using the covering instead. And then there's various settings about the way you want it to look. Most of these ones in the list here obviously are the different cut surfaces for the different areas of your covering. But there's plenty of control over how you want it to show in there. So once you've got things set up the way you want, hit OK, and then it gives you a little line, and click the eyeball onto the side of the wall that you want it to place the covering on. So I'm going to put this on the outside, and you can see now it's placed this covering outside. So not a lot to see in floor plan, so let's jump into the 3D view. Do I have a 3D view I prepared earlier? Yes. So this is the wall that I just applied them to. this wall up above has a weatherboard texture on it, so it looks like it has weatherboards, but they're actually just flat. But this one down below that we just added, these are the real deal ones. So you can see from the side that the weatherboards are 3D. We've got our boards and battens showing beneath that sill height that we set, and everything looks nice. So obviously we can change a lot of the settings in those coverings, and because they're attached to the wall, they know that where my windows and doors are cut, and I can manipulate the windows and doors in them now, and they will continue to cut the correct hole out of the covering. So that's the wall tool, wall covering, that you can use that for a lot of different covering types for probably all of your exterior walls. Next one I want to look at is the roof covering. Again, I've got a corrugation material on this, but you can see it's actually just, it's flat. There's no real corrugated element to that. So let's fix that by selecting my roof, and in a similar way to the wall covering, select it, go to coverings, roof coverings, and then you can see the settings here are quite similar to the to what we had in the wall. So configuration, you can choose how the roof type is set, and what that will do is it will just preset the way that it expects the different edges to behave. The cladding is similar to the wall cladding was, so we've got a couple of different options. You can apply a flat cladding to it, corrugation, ribbed, shingles, tiles, and Spanish tiles. Let's stick with Spanish tiles for now because they look kind of cool. I'll make them a bit bigger so you can see them easily in 3D. We've also got options for how you want the framing to look. It will place framing in between your actual roof slab and the cladding element, so that when you cut through in 3D, you'll be able to see the frames if you choose to show framing. You can see the way that your edge boards are displayed, and the various settings for the different types of edges there. So feet settings and different flashings. You can choose the way that your gutters will look, and also the way that the downpipes will look, if you need those. And you can also handle the way that control the way that it handles gables as well. And we've got similar cut surface settings as we had with the wall tool. So now if I hit OK, it's going to apply that to my roofs. And if I jump back to 3D, you'll be able to see some nice actual 3D Spanish tiles on my roof. And because they're actually 3D, these are going to show if you cut a section through them, and you can control this gutter and all of the various edge types that are going on there. If you select the elements and go to the coverings menu and go to edit roof edges, you can also choose what each type of edge will do by clicking on it to select it and then changing it to whichever you need for whatever you need for this particular roof. We also have a couple of slab covering types and some column coverings as well to do different fluting and that sort of thing. But I don't have time to look into those for now. The roof and the wall are the main ones that you'll probably be interested in using. So let's just look at the cabinet tool quickly, and then we'll have time for some questions. So the cabinet tool is obviously for making cabinets, kitchen cabinets probably largely, and that's available from this cabinets tool here. Object is called CI cabinet. We have a bunch of other objects available in here as well, depending on what you're trying to do. The cabinet is the sort of the main cabinet object, but you can also place independent bench tops, corner cabinets, angled cabinets, edge molding, and then this CI cabinet polygon is a kind of a special cabinet similar to the standard cabinet, but you can manipulate the entire outside edge of it. So you can see in the preview here that it has a kind of a chopped off corner there, so you can edit the whole outside edge. I'm just going to stick with a normal one for now though, just so that I can show you how it works. So I'll place one down, and we can look at it in 3D. So you can see it looks like a cabinet, which is what you'd expect. And we can jump back into the settings and see the sorts of things that we can do with it. So the first thing I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to change the set out of it. Obviously, it's just a single unit with a single door on the front now. I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell it that I want to put some partitions. And then I'll start drawing those on in 3D. So to start with, I'm going to do a horizontal partition right in the middle there. And then I'll get some vertical ones there. Let's add one of these as well. You can see it's adding those to a sort of a wireframe view of my cabinet as I go. And now I'm going to turn off my 3D edit palette by moving this up to the X, and you can see it's reassembled my cabinet into a normal display mode, and it's chopped it into those sections that I partitioned it into. So now I can select the cabinet, and the hotspots from the partitions I created are still there, so I can continue to manipulate those if I need to. And now I can set what types of things each of these parts will be. So if I go into the settings and go to the modules setting, you'll see this 2D representation of the sort of elevation of the front of the cabinet, and I can choose what I want each part to be. So I've got the bottom left one selected at the moment, and it's obviously a door left, which is what they all are by default. I'm going to set this one to a drawer stack, and you can see when I do that, it immediately shows the drawer stack there. Or open shelves. Let's go with open shelves for the bottom there. The one on the right we'll set to a door right. You can see that change right away. Then up on the top, going to set, let's go with just a panel in the middle. And on the left, we'll set that to be a drawer stack. So you can see it's setting those as we go. And now I can go through and look at how I want each module type to be set. So at the moment, I'm looking at drawer stack. I'm going to click through here to see the actual settings of the drawer stack. So I select that, and you can see it's currently set to show this many drawers and use these settings. So it's set to 5 at the moment, but obviously the module the space that I chose to put this module into isn't big enough to allow for that. So I'm going to change this to, actually I'll change it to 2 so that you can see it more easily. So with it having 2, the top part is 120 and the bottom part is set to 120, but it's going to expand out to fill the available space. So that's fine. Set to show white trays, which is fine, and I'm going to stick with these settings by default. Then I'll have a look at door right, because we're using one of those as well. You can see that it's set to show a door and one leaf on the right, which makes sense. And the open shelf settings, you can see as the function is set to none, and the reason for that is that you can draw in the shelves yourself in that 3D edit mode that we were back in before. So now if I jump back to the modules view, you'll be able to see in my preview here that my drawer stack has changed to reflect the changes that I made. So you can go through and modify your modules that way. You can also modify how you want the front panels to look. That's not a good choice because that's nothing. On the right panel, we can set that to be a glass panel. And up the top, we could set that to be a shaker style one. And these have similar settings again, so we can dive in and we can see what the glass panel actually does, how it's set, what kind of shape it uses, and that sort of thing. We can apply a grid to them as well. We'll put an arch top on it. And now again, if I jump back to the modules view, you'll see the overall view. It now has an arch top on that front style. And the last one here is handles, which works very much the same way. So you select it, you choose what kind of handles you want. So we can change these ones to, let's just say a D-pull. and you can see those change right away to DPILs. And again, similar settings for the DPIL, so you can come in here, choose it, and then set the way that you want that to look. So that's setting out the modules. And you can also come into shelves and dividers and set how you want the shelves inside it to work as well. And there's some options in the first sort of set of settings to do with how you want the face to be applied or attached, how you want the carcass to work. You can see the settings for the dimensions of it there, and how you want the legs to look as well. And these will all change it. No, I haven't changed most of those in 3D, but you can see that those changes to the handles and modules I made have applied in 3D as well. So yes, that's the extremely fast overview of 5 of our tools. If you have any questions, pop them into the questions panel now, and I will get to those as I go through. But yeah, for now, depending on where you are, you may have some of these already. If you're in New Zealand, then you already have the doors and windows coverings and cabinets tools available to you. And if you're interested in trying the electrical or Keynotes tools, you can set up a trial version of those or contact your account manager. If you're in Australia and you're on Select, you already get the cabinets and electrical tools included as part of that, so you can use those right away. And if you're interested in any of the others, you can get trials going for those too. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I've shown today or just in general about the tools, you can email those through to us at nz.support@centralinnovation.com, and we'll try to help you out as soon as we can on that. Looks like nobody has any questions, so obviously that was nice and straightforward. But if you do have any questions that you think of afterwards, just send it through to that support email address, and we'll help you out there. And as I say, the recording will be available next week sometime, so you can refer back to that.